Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Chain Breakers, where we take the chance to talk with people at the forefront of the blockchain and digital assets industry. Today we have with us in studio Eyal Hertzog, the co-founder and product architect at Bancor, one of the most forward-thinking and proactive exchanges in the sphere. Eyal, firstly, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. But before we get to you, let's just take a brief look, a bit of an explainer of what Bancor is and what they do. Let's take a look.
Today, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies, and the future holds millions more. What makes these tokens the most useful is seamlessly converting between them at any time. Imagine your coffee shop points were accepted at any cash register in the world, or your airline miles could pay your phone plan with a click of a button. Say hello to Bancor, the world's first decentralized liquidity network, a place where you can convert any token into any other. No exchanges, no order books, no buyers and sellers. Bancor invented the world's first smart token, a digital currency with an embedded converter that allows it to be automatically exchanged for any token in its network. The Bancor network consists of different tokens, all connected through BNT, so every token can always be converted into any other. Any token you have for any token you want, instantly, automatically, and directly from your wallet. Start converting tokens today from any device at bancor.network.
All right, so there's the vision laid out pretty clearly. But before we get, because I know you've got some major announcements you guys have made recently, but before we break down into them, I want to ask you, I mean, this notion and action of interoperability that you guys are really working on at Bancor, you know, being able to readily and accessibly transfer between some of these smaller liquidity tokens. Why do you think that's so important to the ecosystem and to the current crypto sphere right now?
So, you know, the reason we came up with Bancor is not because it's important to the ecosystem, it was because it was important to us, to what we were trying to achieve. And essentially since 2012, and you could actually look up my old post from Bitcoin Talk, the original forum set up by Satoshi. My username is Eyal, my first name. And you can look up my old post about building a system for user-generated tokens, user-generated currencies. Back in 2012, it was not even on the blockchain because there were no real infrastructure for that. But me and my partners, we always had the vision that there will be a long tail of assets, a long tail of user-generated tokens, because we've seen what happened with blogs, we've seen what happened with online videos, we've seen what happens with groups. Whenever the barriers to create anything like that goes down to zero, I mean, it really becomes free, then we see a long tail evolve. And this is what we've been building since then. And in 2013, we launched some community currencies because we thought to ourselves, you know, maybe the long tail will, you know, take shape there. But what we discovered is that liquidity is a real barrier, because not having the ability to buy a token or a currency and to sell it, it's like creating an isolated island. It's like a network that is not connected to the internet. That's not very useful, right? So we needed a solution. We needed something that will allow liquidity, that would provide liquidity for assets that no one trades, something that will disconnect volume from liquidity. And that's how Bancor evolved. So we built it to enable some vision that we believed it, not because we thought, I mean, tokens has taken off only in 2017. Right. We've been working on that, you know, 5 years before that. So when we saw all these tokens, we actually thought to ourselves, oh, the vision that we had is actually happening. People are starting to create the long tail of user-generated tokens. It just took some time.
Certainly, these things do take some time, but I suppose, all right, so there you've laid out the vision, you've laid out the motivation. Let's talk about, you've got some recent announcements that you guys have just made. Talk us through these. What are the sort of latest developments that Bancor is putting forward?
Yeah, so, you know, what we're working on right now is to complete a move that we started a while back. That's the first thing. That is to make Bancor really blockchain agnostic. So we started on Ethereum. There was only Ethereum. That was the place to start. It was the only mature blockchain. But as time went by, so we started by connecting to EOS and made BNT, in fact, the first token that was convertible between different blockchains. So you can have BNTs on Ethereum, you can have BNT on EOS. There is a whole system called Bancor X to deal with that. Then we built kind of the software to make it transparent to the user, very easy to use. And now it's like the last step. And the last step is to take BNT, our network token, that was created on Ethereum as a liquid token, meaning that it has Ether inside the smart contract, there's like, it's connected to Ethereum and Ether in a very strong way. And to say, you know what, the time has come to change that. BNT is now becoming a cross-blockchain currency, and we're going to take care of that. So we're actually taking the Ether within the smart contract, and we are dropping what we call a token relay, essentially a different method of providing liquidity between BNT and Ether to the community, essentially making all of them liquidity provider in one day. And that's kind of the first move. The other move is that as we move from that model, we're going to make BNT something that is more controlled by the community. For example, the community will be able to control and decide what is the inflation of the token. Right. Now, inflation is very important. You see inflation in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in EOS. All the major cryptocurrencies have inflation because that allows them to fund things. With Bitcoin, you find the miners, as well as with Ethereum. With EOS, you fund block producers, but it allows a kind of a, I would say, collective funding by the community, and we're going to allow them to decide what would be the inflation. It's going to start from zero, but they can vote and increasing it. Who will receive the inflation? So for example, if there are strategic liquidity pools that the community thinks should be supported, you can just decide to drop some of the inflation into the liquidity pool, thus encouraging liquidity providers to participate in those liquidity pools. You can fund developments, and we think that this is, again, part of the maturity that Bancor is moving toward, because when we started, we really didn't know, what's the best structure or how we should, it was for everyone. Everyone was new to smart contracts back in 2016 when we started. But 3 years have passed. I think we learned about the dynamics, about the pitfalls, about a standard has been established, and this is why we feel it's the right time to kind of move to the next phase and give communities more control, as well as supporting developers. We started giving grants to third-party development. So in the beginning, we did all ourselves, again, because we didn't know exactly what, how it should be done. But now, I think after building this technology for 3 years, we feel like we can start mentoring, more groups and help them and provide them grants by the foundation. So we're looking for groups of developers wanting to build on top of the Bancor protocol, and that's kind of the essence of our announcement. So
then I suppose I could ask the question, because you're talking about interoperability, you're talking about getting liquidity into some of these, personalized, tokenized, sort of assets and tokenization of things across your network. But there is a concern at the moment that across the entire altcoin network as a whole, there is a loss of liquidity there generally. Is that something that concerns you in Bancor at all, or do you think this is just a current dip in the market and you think in the long term you'll be all right?
It's the second time I've been through that. I mean, I'm like 45 now, and I started, my first startup was in '98, just before the .com crash, and I went through the entire thing myself. And let me tell you, my first startup, Contact.com, was a social network, one of the first in history. It was like using real identities for your personal social network and professional. And after the crash in 2000, no one wanted to invest a dime in my startup. I had to shut it down. No one believed in that internet thing in 2000 and 2001. That was like the lowest year. And I think we're seeing the exact same thing. So everyone got the idea, blockchain, it's so amazing, amazing technologies, like the internet was. They invested so much money in companies, in projects, and they're waiting to see the result. Now, when the result is not here yet, and it's not, we are not seeing any specific service kind of exploding at this moment. It's more like decentralized finance, which is something that serves I would say, the speculators of the industry. Right. It's not something that is going to get adoption from the outside. So as long as that is the case, I think that people are starting to be skeptical, and are like, show me the money, show me where the users are. And I think this is why we see a lot of negative sentiment in the markets.
But there is an issue with use case. I mean, I was at the DNDD conference in Tel Aviv the other day, and they were saying, a lot of creators, they were saying there is a problem. We've got this technology, we've got smart contracts under play, we've got decentralized finance models, but we lack use cases in a lot of instances. I mean, that's something that many in the industry are now coming up against. The technology exists, but until we find that use case, there will be a lack in the market. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think we went through the same thing with the internet. I mean, until we had like the Googles of the world, the Amazons of the world, Amazon crashed like 98% in value because people thought, oh, it's too small, it's too insignificant. So I think we're seeing today the beginning of use cases. We're seeing hints of that, but there's no question in my mind that, this technology is simply better, not because it's like superior technology. It's because it allows to do stuff that needed to be done as a service. Now we can implement that as a protocol. So it's like the difference between AOL and the internet. Mm-hmm. Yes, we had email and browser and everything with AOL, but the reason that people were so hyped about the internet is because they saw that with the internet we're creating a standard to establish the same thing that we're getting through a service before that. And I think everyone can see that, and the only question is what would be kind of the mainstream use services on block. I mean, yeah, we saw stuff like, black market, just like we saw porn in the internet in the beginning. We saw stuff like, decentralized finance, just like in the beginning, everyone were using email and ICQ in the internet, but it was just internet companies using it because connecting to it was a bit challenging. But with the growth of stable coins that I think would help the usability. I was just looking today at RTM. Most people don't even know about RTM, but RTM, they have like 500,000 customers that use blockchain in order to transfer value, and they have a lot of transaction, and this is helping day-to-day people, mostly in South America. Right. People don't even notice that because we're looking for what's going to replace our day-to-day Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Amazon, those kind of things, and those kind of things going to take more time. So we're going to see more and more use case. People would when you have a new use case, essentially it needs to be much better than the existing solution. So building something that is so much better, it just takes time. And the confidence is lost at some point in many projects, but I have no doubt that the technology will take us there.
So then going back to some of the announcements you've made recently there at Bancor, you announced in addition this new project you're putting together called Creator. What can you tell us about that and how you intend to use that and who it's really intended to serve?
So since 2012, when we created this proof of concept system where you can create your own token, we actually didn't launch anything that will serve the long tail of user-generated tokens until 3 days ago, when we launched the MVP. It's still, in the beginning, it's still, it's still buggy to some extent, of course, but it's something that allows any creator of content in the world to issue their own token and do something very simple. That they can take some of their content, premium content, or even some of their time, and essentially offer to their audience kind of premium services and perks if they hold their token. So for example, in my page, if you have 3 tokens, then you can see a premium video. If you have 7 tokens, then you can participate in the AMA that is just for token holders. And if you have 20 tokens, then I will do a private session with you, and I'm going to do one of these once a week. And I'm going to choose if there are several people that want to have this private session, I'm going to choose the one that holds the most token. It also provides you clout in the community. So when you look at the member list, it's sorted by how much tokens they hold, and if you reply to a post, you'll see the replies by people with more token first. So it's a kind of a way for creators to get support and engage with their audience. Now, what we expect to see is an alternative to the existing way. So today people use Patreon or ads or stuff like that. And we think that there's something really magical about it, because if someone holds the token of their creator, they're going to be much more incentivized essentially to spread the word and tell the world about that creator and how great it is, and share his videos and share his content. And we think that creators really like that. If there's anything I learned in 7 years that I was in MetaCafe, my second startup, is that creators prefer fame over fortune. That's just a very simple lesson, and I think that this solution can offer them fame, or at least a quicker path for that. So the key is to make creation of a token super simple and give utility to that token. So just letting you create a token is useless, but if you have utility, you have a use case, and integrated with an onboarding solution, so you can buy within 30 seconds with no KYC, with credit card. We're integrated right now with Carbon.
Who sets the value of those tokens when they're being created? Does the creator themselves set the value? Does Bancor's system set the value?
It's the Bancor system. Essentially, this is what Bancor does. So the way that Bancor works, it's a liquid token. We can read about it in our white paper, but the way that it works is that every token holds BNT in its reserve. So when you buy that token, essentially you increase the price, you increase the reserve, you actually increase the supply as well. When you sell the token, you decrease the supply, you decrease the reserve, and you decrease the price of the token. So that's just how Bancor works.
Right.
And each token has this equilibrium. When you have the same, let's say, a volume of sellers and buyers, that will be the price. If there's more buyers than sellers, the price will go up. If there's more sellers than buyers, the price will go down. So that's kind of how Bancor works. And it's exactly a perfect use case for Bancor, because when a creator starts on the first day, there's no liquidity for the token. If it's traded on exchange, it will have no liquidity. But on Bancor protocol, there's liquidity from the first second.
Right.
People can buy it, people can sell it. It's just liquid. It has nothing to do with the volume of trading on the token, and that's where we see the usefulness of Bancor more than anything else.
And so just sort of lastly to conclude, I always like to give the opportunity, looking forward, obviously you've just made some big announcements, but what do you see down the pipeline for Bancor coming up?
So, I definitely see more blockchain. I definitely see, more projects being around it. Creator is just one example. We really want to empower the long tail of user-generated tokens, and we think that, there is no question that something happened in the world at the moment that someone can issue an asset with the cost of zero, and we want to be the platform that enables that. We want to be the group that supports that. And we're looking forward to, seeing the successful use cases coming out of that.
It certainly will be interesting to watch what happens with that. Eyal Hertzog, I want to thank you so much for coming to join us here on BLOCKTV. And in the meantime, stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news, information, and the best analysis. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.